Well, good morning, good afternoon, and if I don't see you later, good evening.
I've been doing wellness checks on Stephen King, Howard Stern, Bruce Springsteen, John Bon Jovi. I'm doing one now on you, Ken Aller. Altshuler. It's a wellness check. Yesterday, I approached you via text to ask you if you'd like to do a podcast. Now, knowing you as I do, I've known you for more than 20 years now, or about 20 years now. I knew what the answer was going to be.
Let's see
But
my phone.
I wanted to get the answer. You can cue it up on your phone if you'd like to. And I got the expected answer, which was
Fuck no. Too pissed off. I would go off the rails. Let's do it tomorrow when I will have some control over myself. I will likely post a nasty post. I will likely post a nasty posting anyway because I can't control myself. But I am trying to give it another day before I shoot my mouth off.
now you did
I did.
post a very long post,
It wasn't
which
as nasty. I didn't do it till later in the day. I
which I did,
really,
I will not read because it would take up the entire podcast.
right.
To this point, if you're a friend of Ken on social media on Facebook, there are 85 comments already on that post. I was just worried about you moving to Canada. I don't want you to move to Canada, so I
Well,
posted that please don't do that because I would miss you.
yeah, first of all, I would not go to Canada. I'd go to Costa Rica.
Oh yeah, nice, a good
Weather
call.
is great. Why would I go to a colder climate?
Or you could go to Portugal where Dennis Bailey is.
Portugal is supposed to be lovely.
Haven't heard anything from Dennis here the last couple of
He
days.
commented. He liked my comment. Um, yeah, and I will tell you because I may get around to quoting some of the comments on mine because there was one woman who was lovely, but a Trump supporter, and it was so classic what her response was. Well, Harris didn't have any policy positions, and that's why I voted for Harris. I said, well, did you see her 89-page policy paper
Yeah,
on
but
her?
who does that?
I understand, but I know she has policies, but she believed what Donald Trump said was that she has no policies.
Right. You know that I look, I don't think you went and looked at her policy page either.
I
But
actually
okay, well, you're a geek like that, and so
I
I'll
wanted to
take
see
that.
I wanted to see how progressive it was. That was my concern.
She's the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate, so I'm sure it was pretty progressive. But the fact that
This woman didn't
that
understand.
woman made that comment, I think is rather compelling because the policies of Trump, I mentioned in a podcast that we did obviously prior to the election, crime border economy,
Yeah,
and beat those to death. And
yeah,
so I think people thought about those things going into the voting booth, and when they thought about Kamala Harris, they didn't think good thoughts. And so that didn't help her any.
right.
And I was just reading this morning, and this is mind-boggling to me.
I'm listening. I can do two things at once.
Kamala Harris spent $1 billion on this campaign.
Yeah.
Wow. What an extraordinary amount of money. And you know what? She's $20 million in debt. The campaign is in debt, but that's
So
beside the
yeah,
point.
but the
How do you do that? How do
well,
you do
easy.
that and
It's
get your
easy.
ass kicked?
It's easy. You're not gonna like my answer, but I got a lot of them. But primarily because she's a woman, I know you're not gonna like that answer. But Mike, I'm telling you, I am. There's other reasons too, but really, what it comes down to is America will not vote for a woman.
She's the
I'm
wrong
not.
woman, just like Hillary was the
I'm
wrong woman.
not. What's the right Gretchen Whitmer? Nah, she would be.
No, that would be she would be wronger than Kamala
And in
was.
fact, I beg the Republican Party to nominate. Listen, if the Republican Party nominates Nikki Haley in 2028, I will vote for her just so
Okay.
because she
And
can't win.
JD Vance is going to be the nominee in
You know,
2000.
don't be
Come
so
on. The guy
surprised.
is super impressive and he's 39 years old.
Don't be depends what happens in 4 years. My lot can happen. Look, the Democratic Party, and I mean, this podcast could be an hour because the Democratic Party began its decline with Barack Obama. And that's because Barack Obama didn't give a shit about the Democratic National Committee, didn't give a shit about the Democratic Party. He cared about Barack Obama. And because of that, he successfully got elected twice, but he left the Democratic Party with a complete leadership vacuum.
Yep.
Number one. Number two, And it's so basic. The the I hate to say it, the elitists in the Democratic Party who run the party, the Obamas, the Clintons, they don't understand how the working man. And Joe Biden was a fairly attractive candidate for the working man 20 years ago. At some point, you become an insider and nobody likes you. But Donald Trump did not run a campaign. What Donald Trump did was say, I don't care about my base, they're going to vote for me. I don't care about the 45% who hate me. I want to focus on the people who are on the fence, who do not like Joe Biden, aren't really convinced they should vote for me. He went for men primarily. I mean, he was masterful going on podcasts, male podcasts. He talked to the bros. He got the bros on board, and he got elected because of the bros, and particularly Hispanic bros, for God's sake. I mean, who figured that out? I mean, the Hispanic turnout was unbelievable. Not just Hispanic male votes for him. If you look at his numbers with men, white men, black men, Hispanic men, educated men, uneducated men, they elected, and the white women didn't. I mean, women didn't show up for Kamala. Didn't just show up. But a lot of that's because men and women too, don't really trust a woman as president. And let me tell you why I think this thesis is correct. And then I'll shut up and let you talk a little bit. Joe Biden in 2020 compared to Kamala Harris in 2024, not the numbers of votes because less people voted, the percentage of votes in every single county in the United States of America for Kamala Harris were below Joe Biden. Now, that makes sense if Biden was popular in 2020. He was not popular in 2020. Joe Biden has never been popular. Joe Biden was a consensus candidate to keep Bernie off the ballot, which they did. They had to do something to not have Bernie. They got him nominated. It was an anti-Trump vote. It was a COVID vote, and he won. Nobody ever liked him. How does Kamala Harris, and you can say you don't like her, she's stupid, blah, blah, blah. You don't like her less than Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a doddering old man who befuddled, and nobody likes Joe Biden more than Kamala Harris. You may not like Kamala Harris, but you can't say that Kamala Harris is less likable than Joe Biden and explain how every single county, she was 3, 4, 5% lower.
Yeah, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, it's like choosing between the shit and the stink for me. But
there you go.
All right. So this morning, in preparation for this podcast, I went and wrote some notes about some of the stuff that I heard in the media about Donald Trump from people. The nonsensical bullshit about he is Hitler. The existential threat to democracy is a quote that I saw. There'll be internment camps. He wants to shoot Liz Cheney in the face.
Well, he did say that.
No, he didn't say that. Show me the quote. I want you to go find me the quote.
He said, well, how would she react if there's 9 guns pointing at her?
Right. If she were in war,
military,
right? Because she's a war pig.
All right. But listen, Donald Trump is a very smart man. Let me tell you, I said I'd let you talk, and I apologize.
You did, and you're not letting me.
But let me give you 2 examples. When Donald Trump spoke to the Black Journalist Caucus, this is how brilliant the man can be. He wasn't talking to the black journalists. When he said Kamala Harris was Indian and then turned black, he was talking to his base. He knew that was going to grab every headline for 2 or 3 days. He was talking to the undecideds. Listen, she was Indian, she turned black. He wasn't talking to the caucus. He didn't care what they did. Same thing with the dogs and cats being eaten by Hispanics. He knew that was going to get headlines for days and be repeated on talk shows over and over again. His base didn't care. The people who hate him didn't care. But how about the 10%? There are people who said, Jesus Christ, they're eating dogs and cats? This is really bad. I'm telling you, masterful campaign. Bravo. Because he had no ground game whatsoever. 0 ground game. He spent most of his money on legal defense, which he doesn't need now. It was brilliant. He appealed to men. He appealed to the bros and held on to the women. That's all he had to do. He had to not lose a lot of women's votes. And despite abortion, and by the way, masterful answer on the abortion. What did he say? He says, "Hey, listen. I think some of these things are too restrictive. I believe every state should decide for themselves. That's all. I'm listen. I mean, he prided himself on getting Roe v. Wade reversed, and then says, yeah. But Florida's too extreme. Florida's too extreme.
All
I
right.
just leave the
So
state to decide.
let's talk about abortion and its impact on this election.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
are surrounded by women. I'm not.
I am.
I'm a lonely, single, 64-year-old man who lacks female companionship. You are married. You have your daughters close by. It's safe to say that you live in a more feminine world than I do.
Correct.
Um, and you're surrounded by and we run with the pack. You run with your people. So I sit here and think, and I look at this and think that women on the left and the left and Kamala Harris really overstated the importance of abortion in this campaign when it comes to the regular average American woman, not your daughter, not Linda, not any of the left leaning people that you hang out with, but the average American woman right now, I just don't think is all that worried about the abortion issue. They're worried about the price of milk. Are they going to be able to buy their kids Christmas presents at Christmas this year? Inflation has affected them, the price of gas and other shit like that. I just think they really overstated that when you see Harris and Elizabeth Warren and other women out there barking about cackling like hens, like Kamala Harris about abortion. I think they lost the issue there too.
So I I don't necessarily agree with you because 2022. 2022, and the problem with 2022 is Joe Biden considered that a mandate for him. That's where this whole thing goes downhill. If Joe Biden viewed 2022, the no red wave, as a mandate on his presidency, when what it was a mandate on Roe v. Wade, it really was. That's why Donald Trump very intelligently skirted the abortion issue, where other candidates, Republican candidates who came out stronger pro-life, didn't do very well in the polls. In 2022, they lost. I mean, listen, that's usually a time that that presidents lose a lot of Senate and House seats. Biden did not do that. The House, he did very well, but he viewed that as a mandate for him. But to answer your question, I think the abortion issue has decreased. Okay, but they better be careful, because I can see an attempt to have a national ban on abortion, and I do think that's going to happen. No matter what J.D. Vance says and what Donald Trump says, there will be legislation, and they'll say, "Look, we're not proposing it. It's the Senate. It's the House of Representatives. What do you want us to do? Don't blame us." There'll be a national referendum on banning abortion. I hope there is, because that's the only thing that will save us in 2 years or 4 years, to be honest with you. We will not have this. We don't have a shot at the Senate until, I'm going to say, 2030. Maybe in 2030, we can get half the Senate. Until then, there's 3 viable seats in 2 years that are Republicans are holding. We're going to get crushed in the Senate. We may get the House back in 2 years, assuming we lose it this time, which I think we're going to. So I think abortion was less of an issue because 2 years had passed, and it just was less of an issue. But when they asked at the exit polls, it was still 2, 3, second or third or fourth on the list. I agree with you that the economy was important, and you and I know the president gets far too much credit and far too much blame. Donald Trump had the largest deficit in history of any president ever. Nobody said a word about it, right? Because the inflation came afterwards. Okay. And by the way, if Donald Trump does 10% tariffs on China, which I don't think he's going to do, that would be, you'd see inflation like you never saw before. But he's not going to do it, because he says things that generates headlines, and then he doesn't do it. Do I think he was saying that? Yeah, I mean, he did say he was going to put his opponents in jail. Do I really think he's going to do it? No. But I think he's got an agenda, and I think he's a petty man, and I think he's thin-skinned, and I think he'll wreak revenge where he can. I do think he'll do that.
Well, I hope you're. Look, I agree with you that he's certainly been like that in the past. I hope he is somehow, and it's.
Why would he change? And why would he change?
78, I agree. You are what you are.
He's got a mandate, Mike.
All right.
He
Yeah, all
won.
right. That's what I want to go to next. I posted on Facebook this morning a map of the counties of the United States of America and the colors that went for Trump, red, obviously, blue for Harris. By the way, you'll be happy to know that there were two states that were every county completely red. One of them was West Virginia.
Oklahoma.
Yes, Oklahoma was the other one. But the amount of red on that map is unbelievable.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was, all right, just a one-word answer. Was it a Trump mandate? Is it that hard of a question to answer?
What do you mean by that?
Was the vote? He won the popular vote. He won the electoral vote. The red wave is all over the place on that map. Was it a mandate election for the president or the president-elect? Excuse me.
Well, certainly more than 2022 was a Biden mandate.
Can't give you a one-word answer.
I will say, it was a mandate for his policies, but I do believe it was a personality-driven election. So I would say yes, because more than a mandate, it was a mandate on his personality and who they see him as. But I don't think they see him. I mean, do you really think he cares what the average common working man
You
does?
really think that Kamala Harris cares about the average?
I don't. I didn't. I don't.
Any of them. Come on, Ken. We're way past that shit. If
I
you're
do
going
think.
to use
I do
that
think.
as a reason, let me ask you. Let me throw a couple of things at you.
Wait,
Trump.
wait, 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 wait. I agree with you, but there are people who believe that Donald Trump cares about them.
You know what? At one time in my life, I thought the stripper actually liked me when she was giving me a lap dance. So come on, let's get way past that.
That's their skill.
So Trump goes to McDonald's and cooks French fries. Trump does the garbage truck thing after we're called garbage. Trump really, he goes on Joe Rogan, talks
Yeah,
for 3 hours, and you mentioned the bros, yeah, about UFC, about football,
yeah.
about he was the humanized candidate. We didn't get to know her, period, because they were worried about us getting to know her because, well, frankly, she's an idiot and she has zero
What an
personality.
idiot.
He is, Ken.
He's,
They completely hid her away from us. We don't know shit about the
I
only
know
thing
tons of
about
things
Kamala
about her.
Harris is her husband fucked a nanny and knocked the nanny up. That's about all I know.
Mike, I know lots of things about her. You don't know about her because you don't want to know about her any more than I want to know about Donald
She
Trump.
gave Willie Brown a blowjob. I know that about her.
And Donald Trump had sex with
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
One of the great comments was Donald Trump's not anti-abortion because he's probably paid for more than anybody in
Uh-oh.
and it's probably true,
All
Mike.
right. So who was the more humanized candidate in this election? Who was more relatable?
Oh, I think Donald Trump was. That's what I'm saying. It's a personality-driven election.
All right. So if you had to go back and rewind the tape to late June and early July,
Nobody would have beaten. Josh Shapiro wouldn't have beaten him. Nobody would have beaten him. I don't. I think the election was lost when Joe Biden didn't get out of the race in 20. When Joe Biden decided this is a mandate for me, I'm running again. The election was lost then. Do I
right?
think there's any Democratic candidate that could have given him a contest? Um, do I think Kamala Harris was the best? Certainly not. I think she was the only one at that point who could have done it because she inherited whatever machine existed. But Whitmer, no. Josh Shapiro, he's Jewish. They're not going to vote a Jew. I don't care what you say. They're not going to do that. I would have gone. I would have gone with
You elected a black.
yeah. Well, that's more acceptable than a Jew. Look, I would have said Wes Moore. Wes Moore would have been. He's a little inexperienced. I think Wes Moore would have been a good candidate. Maybe the only candidate, frankly. I don't think there's any Democrat that, frankly, would have beaten Donald Trump because what Donald Trump did effectively was get the bro vote. Now, would a man have done better than Kamala Harris? Absolutely, absolutely. There's no woman who would have done better.
So
I've heard people say Michelle Obama would win the election. Bullshit. Absolutely bullshit. She wouldn't have won an election. She couldn't
I
be
think
elected.
her unfavorables are probably as high, if not higher, than Kamala Harris's. So am I a misogynist? Am I a sexist for voting for Donald Trump?
I think our society is no. I see. It's not individual, Mike. It's not. Look. I don't think you don't like women or you think women aren't capable and qualified. I think I think our society was built on the wild, wild west. Six gun on your hip. Look at our love for guns. Look at our love. Look how violent we are. Look at our love for. We are a bro country, a bro nation. It's inherent in who we are. I don't think it's. I don't think you. I don't think we hate women or really think they're incapable. It's just a visceral instinct in us to put men in leadership positions for the most part. Let them sometimes be governor, let sometimes senator, sometimes CEO, makes us look good, feel good. At the end of the day, nah, I'm not going to trust that skirt. No way. Not doing it. Not
All
doing
right.
it.
Let's I saw somebody use the term autopsy the other day, do an autopsy on the Democratic Party. Um, does the Democratic Party have to change its policy stances on issues in order to get back in the game?
With that's the smartest thing you said today.
Thank you.
The progressives are the death of the Democratic Party. If you can't get back to center, we're doomed. We're doomed. You know, I heard a statistic that 50% of Democrats coming out of the polls identified themselves as progressives. That's terrifying. Okay. Because listen, MAGA may continue after Donald Trump. I don't think it'll be as powerful. It's like the Tea Party, everybody runs their course. I think there's a lot of personality driven here. I don't, I mean, everybody says Don Jr. Donald Jr. is not Donald Sr. You know, there's no substitute. Listen, Donald Trump,
But you got JD Vance and Ron DeSantis out there. You know, we don't need
you're
Don
like,
Jr.
Ron is not as popular in Florida as you think he is. He
Yeah.
really is not.
And that state is run like a finely tuned machine.
I disagree, but that's a podcast for another day. You can't spend your life saying we've got to, not drill, baby, drill. All those kind of progressive environment first. The snail darter has got to be saved, even if it means a multi-million-dollar factory has to be moved to China. You can't do that. You can't look. I like the snail darter as much as anybody else, but but America, Donald Trump got elected because the working class man says, I identify with this guy. This guy, I agree with him. I could have a beer with him. He believes in my job. Okay, the working class man or the suburban women married to the middle class man doesn't give two shits about whether or not we have a gas pipeline going down the middle of America. They don't care. They want their gas to be cheaper. They don't care how it happens.
Mhm.
So you got to come to center. You got to come to center. I mean, AOC. That extreme. They'll be the death of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, not good. So
But how do you do that?
I
The first thing, the DNC, the chair of the DNC, cannot be Kamala Harris. It's got to be an outside the beltway individual. It's got to be somebody who has a moderate independent streak in them. Somebody who you can lean left, but be independent, be outside the circle, get out of the beltway. That is killing us. You got to understand the middle class. I grew up in Oklahoma. I'm a liberal, but I'm not a progressive. And I lived in Oklahoma. I know who those people are. I know why they vote red. I know what they believe. If you get them to believe that you really understand, not care about them, understand them, they'll relate to you. You're in the beltway, you're an elitist, never going to happen. Never going to happen.
many a presidential candidate in our history, including in our lifetimes, has lost a presidential election and fashioned a comeback. You can go back to Nixon losing in 60 and then rebounding in 68. He even went and lost the gubernatorial race in California to Jerry Brown's father in 62. Ronald Reagan, dispatched by Gerald Ford in 76, came back.
Yeah.
So does Kamala Harris have a political future?
Oh, please don't even mention that to me. That'll make me nauseous.
Running for governor of California. I heard somebody say that this morning.
I like Kamala. I supported her in 2020 over Joe Biden. Could you get elected? I don't think so. I think because those people you mentioned about a comeback was a comeback for president. Okay, most of them will not go and agree to be a senator or governor. I think she could get elected in California. California's a progressive state. I think she could get elected most likely. Um, she should never run for president again.
No,
I would never, I will tell you something right here, and I've told you this for the entire time you're on the radio with me. I said to you, I will vote for any woman running for president. And I'm telling you today, if the Democrats nominate a woman, I will not vote for her.
no matter who she is.
She can't win. I'm not going to vote for somebody who can't win. If they brought Hillary back, and I love Hillary, nope, you can't win.
Wow. Ken Altshuler here and now on this day announcing he will
I
not support
will.
a woman.
There will not be a woman president in my lifetime. Granted, my lifetime's not that much longer, but
You have been advocating for a skirt to be president for
oh, there
years.
should be. I think they're more collaborative. I think it would be a group, and I don't know why well, I do know why United States can't do it because we're a misogynist society. But look at go to my year. Look at Margaret Thatcher. Was there a better leader in Great Britain than Margaret Thatcher? I can't, except for Winston Churchill. I can't think of one. You know. By the way, have you seen the Diplomat on Netflix?
No.
Kerry Russell. I know one of your favorites.
Oh,
Kerry
yeah.
Russell.
And I just hooked up because after the move, I haven't had TV, but I just hooked up to Fubo and I've got Netflix and, Hulu.
Watch the Diplomat. It just dropped its second season.
Yeah.
It is, if you're a political junkie and you
Any
like
any
Russell,
good sex scenes in it?
there's few. You see her in her underwear periodically.
All right, I'm in.
You see her peeing if that's a turn on to you.
Not really. Not really. So here in the state of Maine, Angus
Oh yeah,
King
we've been talking about Maine.
only got 52% of the vote in a race that had four different people in it. But he basically cruised to victory in what will be his last term. He'll be 86 when he gets done. But I'll tell you, he does not come across as 80. There's no question about
But
that.
before that, do you think Susan Collins will run again?
No, I hope she doesn't because I don't want to have to vote against her.
Or maybe I should put my hat in the ring?
Sure. You'll only be, if you were elected in 2 years, you'd be 80 when you got done.
I'd be, yeah, that's true.
Surprised at how close Jared Golden and Austin Terrio ended up.
You know, you remember 2 or 3 months ago, I said that I thought Jared was going to lose. And then when we talked last week, I said, well, the poll numbers are really leading his way. I guess I'll believe him. Um, well, I'm not shocked based upon what happened with everywhere else.
I'll tell you this, Terrio not beating Jared Golden in the second district is a colossal failure for the Maine Republican Party. Jason Savage, the director or whatever, he should be fired. If you don't win that race with the coattails that Trump had nationwide, you're incompetent. I mean, obviously, Shelley Pingree's going to, dominate in the first district. That's a lost cause. But if Trump wins the second CD and Terrio doesn't win the race,
Look at the numbers of Trump in the first district, for God's sake. I mean, it's shocking how many. I mean, he did very well in the state of Maine. There was a time I thought he may win the state of Maine, for God's sake. He was doing so well. Yeah, and this was the time to beat Jared. Terrio, he wasn't an unattractive. He was a NASCAR guy. That's a Trump kind of guy.
that's a big second CD thing. I thought that would make him incredibly appealing to the point
I'm
where
pretty surprised. And if I was Jared, I may look at the governors because I don't. Well, 2 years is going to be different. I mean,
Collins.
keep in mind, you think Collins is going to run for? Oh,
No, I think he's going to run for her seat.
Yeah, yeah, that could be. 2 years. Remember, an off year. The off year election usually favors the Democrats. I mean, the outside party.
The outside, yeah.
I think the Democrats will win the House back in 2 years. Though they won't win the Senate back until after 2030. The other thing is, I know we're kind of protracting discussion. Who do the Democrats have for their future? Who do they have? I mean, they don't have anybody. I mean, they really have. I mean, Whitmer. I like Whitmer. I think, but I won't. Her as president, I won't support. I think Westmore is a good candidate, governor of Maryland. He's fairly new, but he's a viable candidate. But who else do we have? Beto O'Rourke, no, thank you. Buttigieg, no, thank you. Who do we have? What Democrat do we have today?
Yeah, you think we're not ready for a woman or whatever. We're not ready for a gay man, that's for sure either, in the case of Buttigieg. But back here in Maine, I do think Golden is a viable senatorial candidate. But, we're 2 years out from a gubernatorial race, and I have no idea who's going to be a viable candidate there. Golden, I think, is going to wait for that Senate seat. He's a DC guy, and I don't think he wants to.
Yeah, why not run? I guess he could run for the House one more time. I mean, this was not a good race for him. And I'm not, and you gotta look at what's going to be, what are we going to be like in 2 years? Let's see what the economy is. By the way, don't forget this, the stock market increased more during Biden's 4 years than Trump's 4 years. Just don't forget that. But it depends what the economy is in 2 years. And if Trump does stupid things like do a 10% tariff on China goods, the economy is going to be in the tank in 2 years, and then maybe a blue sweep. But
Are you disappointed that we didn't change the state of Maine
I was going
flag?
to tell you, we haven't talked about the most important issue. The only thing I really cared about was having the old flag come back.
Really, you wanted the lone pine with the star?
I hate the Maine flag.
I like that. I like that, and I actually have a T-shirt with that on it. But I like the Dirigo, and I like
Uh,
that. That's cool.
no, I'm not flying that flag. I'm going to keep flying the white flag with the pine tree. I've got one.
You have that choice.
That and why would that not win? Tell me why that would. I think even Donald Trump would have liked that flag. He should
No,
have endorsed that flag. I wonder what would have
think,
happened.
tradition ruled here. I think people wanted, there's some comfort in Dirigo.
Sake.
You know what
I
Dirigo
lead.
means?
I lead.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you're Phil Harriman, you say Dirigo.
So, any idea who's going to be run for governor in 2 years?
I haven't heard literally a name on either side. I honestly do not know. I
Would
have
Troy Jackson? Would that be the natural choice?
really.
I'm not happy about it.
Geez, so
I don't see Hannah being a viable candidate.
Hannah Pingree.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Oh, it's Shauna Bellows, who, by the way, is incompetent as Secretary of State. The state of Florida has 7 million voters. In 2 hours, every single ballot was counted and accounted for. We still, as we record this podcast, 2 days, we're still not done yet.
Why are you blaming Cheddar for that? She's not in
Because
charge.
she's in charge of it. The buck stops at the top. She's nothing more than an Ken, do you think it should be 2 days later that we haven't finished up?
No, and I don't know why it's been so. It was slow all Tuesday. Was slow. I mean, all
wasn't
Wednesday.
slow in Florida. Wasn't slow in a couple of other
Oh,
states.
but in the past, so you know what happens when this happens in the next election? They get their shit together.
But don't you remember back before we had all of this technology? We always knew by the time the 11 o'clock news came on who won. Now we don't.
Wait, I do have a question for you before we end. Why were we not able to fix this election like we did in 2020? We got Biden voted.
You know why?
Violently in
I'll tell you why.
But we
Because
screwed up.
here's why. I actually know.
Hey,
Because the Republicans bought into early voting and we voted early and we got our votes in, and you guys couldn't sabotage that.
yeah, of course we could. We fraud can be committed on every level. We are fraudulent in the machines, we're fraudulent in the clerks, we're fraudulent in the mail-in ballots. We can be fraudulent anywhere. The fact that it was early voting doesn't mean we can't be fraudulent. We can, in fact, it makes it easier. When you have earlier voting, you can manipulate those ballots faster, earlier. I don't understand. I'm curious. If the 2020 election was fraudulent, where did we go wrong in 2024? How come we couldn't duplicate
Something you should do a minutes-long investigation into, Ken.
Now, what I want to have happen is I want Donald Trump to say, well, I guess I didn't win 2020. Do you think that's going to happen?
No, I don't.
All right, my friend, let's try.
I'm glad to see that you're okay. I'm glad my wellness check is over with. I'm going to go check on Stephen King now.
You take care, bud. We'll talk next week.